Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Please remain standing as we offer a moment of prayer.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for today, God, because this is the day that you have made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the opportunity to gather and address the public today. Father, we ask for your guidance, your wisdom, and for government officials as they address the important issues of today. Father, grant them clarity of thought and expression, and may their words be a source of understanding and unity. Father, may their words be truthful, measured, and aimed for a common good. Father, guide them in their communication, that they may effectively convey the necessary information to the people of this federation that they serve. Father, we pray that the presence of the media, that they will be accurately in reporting the information shared and contribute to a well-informed public and a public, well-informed to the public. Father, even now, we pray that those that are listening, allow them to have the willingness to have open hearts and minds as they're listening so that they could engage in constructive discussions. So Father, even now, bless every cabinet minister that's here, including our Prime Minister. And pray, oh God, that you will continue to have your way in our federation. In Jesus' name, amen and amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Thank you, Pastor Jeremy Thomas. Good morning and blessed Tuesday to all. I am Javan Library, Press Secretary to the Prime Minister of St. Nevis. We are gathered here this morning not just to answer questions and share updates, but to reaffirm our commitment to open dialogue, responsible governance, and accountable leadership. The presence of the Cabinet here today is a reflection of that commitment and a recognition that transparency and access are fundamental pillars of democracy. And so, I welcome each of you, media professionals, public officers, and members of the viewing and listening public to today's engagement. This press conference comes at a time when our nation is both reflecting and projecting. In just under 3 years, this government has moved with clarity, urgency, and purpose to deliver results that touch every sector and every community. From building critical infrastructure and securing water resilience to expanding access to education, housing, healthcare, jobs, and digital services, this government's record is one of action. Today is about updating you of that progress and about taking your questions, quelling concerns, and challenging the naysayers as we continue as a government to power forward. At this time, I acknowledge the presence of the cabinet members here today. The Honorable Dr. Terrance, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, National Security and Immigration, Health and Social Security. The Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education, Youth, Social Development, Gender Affairs, Aging and Disability. The Right Honorable Dr. Denzil Douglas, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Economic Development, International Trade, Investment, Industry and Commerce. The Honorable Conway Maynard, Minister of Public Infrastructure and Utilities, Transport, Information, Communication and Technology and Post. The Honorable Samuel Duggins, Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources, Entrepreneurship, Cooperatives and Creative Economy. And the Honorable Marsha Henderson, Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, International Transport, Employment and Labor, and Urban Development. I also apologize, for the Honorable Garth Wilkin, Honorable Joya Clark, and Honorable Iseline Phillip, who are all currently away on business. At this time, it is my honor to invite the Prime Minister of the Federation of St. Nevis, Honorable Dr. Terrance Drew, to deliver his official opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Press Secretary, Javan Libert. Good morning to all my colleagues. In the interest of time, I will stand on the order of precedence that he established this morning to give the press a little bit more time. Let me recognize, of course, other members, leadership of the government, to all of our citizens and residents who are listening at this particular time to this quarterly press conference of the Cabinet of St. Kitts and Nevis, your cabinet. And I was mentioned before, this is, of course, an opportunity for us to answer any questions and to give updates and information to our people, which we consider to be a fundamental pillar of our governance structure. And so we value this opportunity, of course. Let me also recognize our people in the diaspora, those who are in the various parts of North America, Europe, Caribbean, wherever they are in the world. We want to recognize them and to welcome them as well. I will read an opening statement, and then the press will have the opportunity to ask any member of cabinet any question that they desire. And so that would be the format. And then at the end, I will give a closing statement. So the format is to make sure that everybody is engaged, as the ministers are in charge of very important ministries. So I just want to say good morning to all of you and to say again that this government takes accountability very seriously. As such, it is always a privilege to engage the members of the media and speak directly to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, not just to report on what has been done, but to account for the trust you've placed in this administration. As we meet here today, we do so at a time when our country is moving with momentum and with purpose. In less than 3 years, we have taken bold steps to deliver the kind of governance that puts people first, you, our citizens and residents. And the results are unfolding before our very eyes, on our roads, in our schools, through our hospitals, and across our communities. We inherited challenges, yes, but we also inherited an unshakable responsibility to build a more resilient, more inclusive, and more sustainable future for all. Today, I am proud to say that we are delivering, we are powering progress, and we are doing so with discipline, with diligence, and with a clear vision rooted in our sustainable island state agenda. The desalination plant in Bastia, now over 75% complete, and the minister would expound on that, I'm sure, will soon bring clean, reliable water to thousands of residents in Bastia, St. Peter's, the surrounding communities, Frigate Bay, and so forth. And he would expound, as I said, a real solution to a long-standing problem. The new Bastia High School, idle for over a decade, is finally being built. Foundations, of course, are being laid. Earthworks have been done, and we are getting ready to move into the construction phase. Our energy sector is being transformed. At need must, we are upgrading our national power grid. In Nevis, 5 international firms have submitted bids to drill our geothermal wells, with US $37 million already secured. We are building energy independence day by day. Across the Federation, road projects are breathing new life into long neglected areas, Shadwell, Newton Ground, White House Gardens, Palmetto Point, and the list goes on and on. In every constituency, roads are being touched. And of course, the major overhaul of the St. Peter's Main Road, which was neglected when the rest of the island main road was rehabilitated. St. Peter's is our fastest growing community, and this project is about dignity, access, opportunity, and to make sure that the necessary roadways are in place for the expansion of the community. We are digitizing government services with a national IE-ID system that begins rollout later this year, thanks to partnerships with Estonia, a company from Estonia, and Taiwan, Republic of China, Taiwan. The future of public service will be faster, smarter, and more citizen-focused. In agriculture, our Tabasco pepper project, our agricultural project, this is just part of it, has surpassed expectations thus far, and we are on track to expand that as well. We are also preparing to break ground on the country's first ever seafood processing facility, an investment in jobs, exports, and national food security. In housing, we've already handed over 183 homes to families and are building 79 more as we speak. And I've said to the Minister of Housing, he needs to do more handing over of keys because he has delivered in this short time more houses than any other time in this particular period in which he has been the minister. We are also constructing apartments in the Bastia area and expanding urban access to affordable houses. Meanwhile, over 50 of our citizens have received or are in the process of receiving training in EV maintenance, electric vehicle. We are preparing for the future. This is being done at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College at the TechVoc area. We have also started another course in solar PV, or that is to start very, very soon, the end of this month. We will be training again about 50 persons in solar installation of solar panels and so forth, getting ready for the new economy. We have also started training in cybersecurity, where we want to train over 100 people initially. And this is, of course, because cybersecurity, as we become more digitized, cybersecurity become even more important. And so that course has already begun. Again, this is because we are building the future. The future is now. And over 700 young people have been engaged. Over 7,000 young people have been engaged with the Aspire program to gain skills and work readiness. We increased the minimum wage to $12.50 per hour after full national consultation. And we did so because we believe that economic growth must translate into better lives for our people. That same principle guided our budget boost wallet and VAT relief measures, which helped households save more and spend better during critical months. Every month, over 22,000 of our citizens and residents benefited from the budget boost wallet, and they also benefited from the VAT relief. As we speak, job registrations are up 11%. 11%. Construction is rebounding. Tourism, as you know, is soaring. This year's St. Kitts Music Festival saw a 76% increase in attendance, pumping energy into the economy and pride into our people. And the minister, of course, will expound. This is what real progress looks like. It may not always make headlines, but it changes lives. Today, as your government, we commit ourselves to work more going forward. Because even as we celebrate how far we've come, we remain focused on how far we must go. This is part of our pledge to be transparent, to be present, and to be accountable. Together, as a cabinet, a government, and as a community, we are building a nation that works for everyone. Today, we are powering progress. Before I take my seat, I wish to say this to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, our beloved people. Your government remains deeply committed to walking with you every step of the way. We may not get everything perfect, but we are not perfect beings. but we will always lead with purpose, compassion, accountability, competence. And to the members of the media, this press conference is about dialogue. And of course, we look forward to an open and constructive exchange. As I say again, this exchange is between the cabinet of St. Kitts and Nevis and the press, the media, and not between the Prime Minister and the press and the media. We have a forum where that we use for that, which is the round table. And with that, I want to thank you all very, very much and encourage our citizens to continue to stay tuned for the wealth and breadth of information that will be given by the ministers and members of cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll move straight into it. To the members of the media, as a reminder, please note that all questions will be directed to the Prime Minister, who would then delegate accordingly. When asking your questions, please state your name and the name of the media host you represent. You can ask 2 questions at a time to allow for smooth flow of the proceedings and to give the ministers adequate time to respond. And as usual, we will alternate between the media houses. So,
all right. Good morning, Glenn Bart, SKN Newsline. My first question relates to health. Several persons have approached me over the past few weeks and have said to me that they're having difficulty getting certain prescriptions filled at the health centers as well as the JNF pharmacy. I would like to know why this is happening, and what remedial actions have taken place to resolve the situation. I understand that this situation has been going on for the past 2 months or so. Secondly, the appeals court, when it meets in St. Kitts or any of the other territories served by the OECS Supreme Court, every government has to pay tens of thousands of dollars to accommodate them. My question is that in this year, 2025, with all the technology that is available to us, why is this still happening? Is this government now prepared as a cost-cutting measure to request the court to relook at their methodology of meetings? Perhaps we can use online services to effect what they do on the ground and save the countries a lot of money per year. So those are my 2 questions for now.
All right, I'll answer the first one, of course, and also the one with respect to the Supreme Court, as I recently met at the OECS Authority meeting, and we had a presentation from the Supreme Court. The AG is not here with us. As you know, he's away on government's business. He gave a major keynote address just recently, and therefore we want to acknowledge his work abroad, which is also critically important in the advancement of our country. With respect to the matter of medication, that has not been brought. I don't know about that. Have you verified independently? That is a question that I would ask. It depends a lot of the times. We have what you call the OECS, common purchasing, we call it PPS, where all of the OECS will buy medications in bulk so that the price can be extremely low. Why? For example, in the United States of America, where you had persons who had trouble buying insulin, here in the OECS, we don't have an issue with accessibility to insulin because of that strategy of really buying in bulk so that the unit cost per country and the cost per patient can be very low. What we do at the health centers for $10, and this is probably one of the lowest across the region, whatever is on the prescription, we give a significant amount of medication. If you were to go, for example, to a pharmacy and buy that, that would cost you hundreds of dollars. So our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis are saving a tremendous amount because we subsidize heavily the cost of medication, especially those medications that are used for chronic diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, and so forth. So if there's an issue, I would look into that. I can say we just had an assessment of our procurement system. We just hired somebody who is dedicated to procurement to assist in how we procure medication and stock management. And that person started to work, I'll say, about 3 to 4 months ago to ensure that these issues are always dealt with. And the next move is to put a system in place using technology, IT system, to help to manage the stock there. So that is something that would have to be looked into. But I always say to the press, it is not the best thing to simply say that you're here. As I said around, with respect to the round table, it is also good to call to verify, because what you can bring here is conjecture, and conjecture can make news. And so I ask the press to be extremely responsible in the sense that if you hear that and you say that is a concern, find out so that your question will be based on not just what you hear, because every day you hear a lot of things. I hear a lot of things. And a lot of the things that you hear are not accurate and factual. And therefore, I would say, if you hear that, seek to verify and then ask a question. It makes the conversation a little bit more meaningful. And then it also makes it much better for a meaningful answer if you were to hear that and that was drawn to our attention with respect. So I will say that as well. On the second question, the AG is online. He's speaking with respect to the OECS Appeals Court. And therefore, if the AG is online, AG, can you hear me? Hello?
Good morning, Prime Minister. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning. Have you heard the question?
Yes, I've heard the question from Mr. Bath.
Okay, yes. So can you answer?
Yes, Mr. Bath, thank you for the question. I want to start by saying that the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court has been extremely reasonable over the past few years, conducting the Court of Appeals sessions, which sometimes sit in St. Kitts between 2 to 3 times a year. And I believe this is only the second time they are physically having the sitting in St. Kitts. So they've been extremely reasonable in facilitating online hearings. However, the executive is not supposed to direct the court as to when they sit virtually and when they sit in person. However, the point you have raised is a very good one. We always have to protect the public purse. And I will have a discussion with the Chief Registrar, given that this matter has been raised by the general public through you, to discuss the potential of continuing the practice where majority of the sittings are actually held virtually. So there's no wastage of funds for the physical sittings, but we cannot direct them as there's a separation of powers.
Good morning, Ralston Rankin, Sugar City FM. Honorable Prime Minister, before I go into my question, you just mentioned, we should get in contact with places and so forth. But in respect to my colleague, we have been doing that sometimes. And, it's either you're going to get back to us or the phone rings and it rings. So just let you know that we do try to reach out at times. All right, my first question has to do with the basketball city. The 2 previous administrations, the Unity and the Labour administration, did nothing, in terms of the basketball city, right? So I'm hoping that this administration have an answer that it can give to the people, in respect to that. Secondly, there's been, a lot of persons meeting me, just like Mr. Bart, concerning the high cost in the customs. Even before the tariffs, there have been complaints about the custom charges high for persons bringing in stuff because they find what they want in St. Kitts is far too expensive to get here. So I'm hoping that you can respond on that and see if there's something can be done when it comes to the custom charges.
All right, the Minister of Sports.
Yes, regarding the question on the basketball city, like you said, for years, basketball city has had quite a bit of neglect. However, I had indicated some weeks ago that we will be doing some work on Basketball City. I was advised by the Ministry of Public Works yesterday that that contract will be signed today and work should commence before the end of the week. And I would refer the other question back to the chairperson.
Honorable. Okay. Just 1 second. So the first question was about the customs.
Right.
Yes.
So with respect to the custom charges, there has been no increase with respect to the rates of custom charges. So whatever the rate is, that is the rate that should be paid. And so I have not seen a change in the rate with respect to that. I know sometimes when things come to customs in any country, if a charge has to be paid, then sometimes there's a query. And I think that people have a right to query their charges as such. And from my perspective, in speaking to the controller the last time, there's no change in the rate with respect to customs. What I would say though, there are some persons who might use different methods of getting things into the country, maybe in those instances. But I think for the most part, that should not be done. And if that is done, and somebody questioned the other day and asked the comptroller to make sure that persons can actually query their charge and persons should be shown how much they are paid and what methodology is used. This is a very serious question and should not be taken lightly if people are asking these questions. But nonetheless, no changes to custom charges have been made. It has been the same. We have not increased the charges and we have not added any new taxes to anything, right?
Well, what I was going to say, Prime Minister, is that maybe the computation naturally would have changed because, remember, because of the situation in, since COVID and situation in Europe with regard to Ukraine and Russian war, and the imposition of higher tariffs on ships that are Chinese in make by the United States government, then of course those charges are passed on to the consumer. So by the time it gets here, freight cost has increased, insurance would have increased, and naturally the VAT and the customs service charge, etc., which are paid, would be on a higher base level, and so naturally the price would be increased.
Thank you.
Good morning to all. My measles outbreak. We had a slight dip in vaccination rates for the MMR across the region. We dipped to under 90%. Normally we were above 90%. There is some vaccine hesitancy that remains post-COVID, trying to find out with this outbreak, because it is a real threat to us in the region as a tourism-dependent area, what measures we're taking to shore up ourselves against any potential infection that might come through our borders in particular. The second question that I have has to do, and I'm glad the AG was online, I hope he's still there, to do with the judge alone trials. There is still some conversation around that, in that I'm not sure if most people, just ordinary people in the public, know that it's only available to the Crown. It is not something that can be requested by the defense. And the argument is that there is some inconsistency in that jurisdictions like Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Antigua and Barbuda also make this available to the defense as well. Is this something that is being looked at to revise that piece of legislation that speaks to the judge alone trials, which is not a bad thing, but may not entirely be just and whole with that omission?
All right, thank you very much. On the issue of the measles, since COVID, we have put a number of measures in place from the Ministry of Health perspective, we actually procured a bus. And that bus, the main use of it is to move around the country to find persons who were not vaccinated. Because two things happen, apart from the vaccine hesitancy, is that during COVID, because people were not accessing health care because of the lockdowns and all of these things, the rate of vaccination went down, I would say, around the world. And we were no exception. And so we took that measure. And so about a few months ago, our rate was at 70-something%. I can say today that our rate is above 90% at this particular time, because the nurses, and I want to thank the nurses, Nurse Irish and the team in public health, and Dr. Isles with the responsibility for our community health here in St. Kitts and Nevis, went and looked for these children. They went to the schools, they went to their homes, wherever they would have found them, and they administered the vaccine. So at this present time, St. Kitts and Nevis has a very respectable rate of vaccination, even post-COVID, because of those very strict measures. Get in a bus, putting the nurses on the bus, go and look for the children, walk the streets, go to the schools and look for the children. And that has worked tremendously. And the last update I had, which was about a month ago, our rates were significantly increased and should be above 90% at this particular point. We are aiming for 100%. Why? Because we think we can reach every child. However, we definitely want to be above the 90% range and even better above the 95% range. And that will create what you call herd immunity and help to stop the spread. However, people travel here from the United States, they travel here from other places that have, measles and so forth. So I want to encourage our people to make sure you go and you get your child vaccinated. These vaccines have been tested for decades upon decades. These aren't just new. These aren't new vaccines. These vaccines have gone through all the trials and regulations around the admin-bound vaccine before they come to market. And after they come to market, because they have been there so long, a lot of studies have been done post-market. And in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have not seen measles for a very long time. We just don't know what that is. And that is because our people are vaccinated. So we took those measures, and I can say we are on the front line and we are having good response, and our strategy has worked. I think the AG is online with respect to the judge only. AG, did you hear that question?
Yes, Prime Minister, I did.
Okay.
Thank you, Ebony, for the question. The short answer is yes, we are debating an amendment to the Judge Alone Trials Act on Thursday in Parliament. And one of the amendments is to allow for the accused to also apply for a judge alone trial. I will speak in greater detail on this in Parliament, but I just want to say that the Judge Alone Trials Act has been very important. We have a primary example that is happening now in the assizes. There's a murder trial that had been going on for numerous weeks before there was an attempt to interfere with one of the jurors. The juror brought that information to the attention of the court, and the jury was dismissed. The case was able to continue because of the Judge Alone Trials Act. If the Judge Alone Trials Act had not been passed last year and brought into law, many days of judicial time and energy would have been lost, as the trial would have had to be abandoned and restarted in the future. So I'm saying that to inform the general public, and I'll speak in more detail about that on Thursday during the debate in Parliament, that the Judge Alone Act has been very beneficial to our society, and it has dealt with the issue that brought it to the attention of the government that there had been numerous attempts by persons to try to influence jurors.
All right, thank you very much.
Good morning, Devon Cornelius, ZIZ. Looking at citizenship, what is the status of the investigation into the marriage scam? Has anyone been arrested to date? And in the area of tourism, what were the figures for this year's Sinkers Music Festival in terms of each night and overall? And has the ministry commissioned an economic impact assessment to know how we performed? Thank you.
Prime Minister.
All right. Thank you very much. I think we should go first to the Minister of Tourism for that question. Minister Henderson.
Thank you, PM, and thank you, Devon, for the question. We are still collating the data, but we were able this year to scan tickets to give us a more accurate account of patrons. We did have some glitches, but on the Thursday night, we had about 11,000 patrons. On the Friday night, we had close to 16,000 patrons. And on the Saturday night, we had just under 10,000 patrons. In terms of we did, like I've said, when we did our previous press conference, prior to the music festival, we did have, we are in the process of finalizing the assessment, the economic impact assessment. I just want to take this opportunity as well to thank all the volunteers who worked during, and they are still working because we're collecting data until the end of July. That is what the experts have said, and the data will then be assessed during the month of August. Thereafter, we should have the final report. So I want to thank all the volunteers who worked before the festival, during the festival, and those who continue to work now with us in having the information, the data, and everything collected so that we can have a final economic impact assessment for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and for, of course, for us within the ministry to see how we should be using our resources as well. And of course, for the stakeholders of the industry, the hoteliers, restaurateurs, and all of the people who continue to work within the tourism industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. There was another question. I think the AG is on.
Yes, good morning again, Prime Minister. I'm here. Thank you, Devon, for the question. As I had updated the last time we had a press conference and the question was asked, there was a charge laid in relation to the pay for marriage issue. And since then, we have issued new marriage regulations, which ends any chance of that sort of arrangement happening again. There is a marriage verification process now. So any citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis who gets married to someone else, there is a person assigned in the Ministry of National Security called a marriage verification officer. That marriage verification officer interviews the couple. That they can also visit their home, see if they have pictures together, interview persons in the community to determine if the marriage is actually legitimate. If a person has been married for numerous years and then applies, they can quickly do that process by verifying that they've been together for a certain amount of time. And that is the process that must be completed within 2 years. It can be done in 5 minutes, because if a person who has an established marriage, children, etc. for numerous years applies, then the marriage verification officer has little work to do. Or it can take the full 18 months to 2 years, where the marriage verification officer has to actually verify that the people are actually in a real marriage and not a marriage of convenience. So we've created those regulations which are in force, I believe, since July last year. And that is now the process to obtain citizenship by marriage. There are still investigations ongoing. However, as I had said the last time, it's very difficult to unravel what we have found, because it's not easy to prove in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt that there was a marriage of convenience. However, there has been a prosecution and there are continuing investigations. So if there's any progress in the investigations, I'll be sure to ask either the ministry or the DPP's office to update the press.
Thank you very much, AG. Go ahead.
Good morning, Kyloni Johnson, SKNIS. Mr. PM, with the winning bid for the drilling phase of the geothermal project expected soon, can you clarify how this project will be managed, particularly as it relates to the role of the NIA? And my second question is, with the Bastia desalination plant at such an advanced stage of completion, what's the ministry's next major initiative to further secure water security?
Thank you very much. I think I'll pass those two questions on to the appropriate minister, Honorable Congress Maynard.
Thank you very much, Mr. PM, and thank you for the question. If I may start with the geothermal, we're still in the early stages where the drilling companies have bid and submitted their bids for the drilling contract to drill what we call the production wells. That is presently under evaluation. So if my recollection is correct, I think there were 5 major companies around the world that bid to drill here in Nevis. This is very significant because in that pool, we see some credible developers and credible drillers who we can have confidence once they are to win the bid that the drilling will be done. So before that step needs to happen now, we actually need to have the drilling to confirm the existence of the production capacity of the wells. All science tells us that it will be that, but we still have to do it. And so in terms of final structure of arrangements, that has not yet been completed. I do know that the Attorney General, the Prime Minister, the Premier of Nevis, and relevant ministries, of course, on St. Kitts and on Nevis, are in discussions of how we're going to formalize the structure going forward. We have a number of consultations and consultants who will be providing advice from every level. And so we're fairly confident that we will come up with a structure that makes the best sense for the Federation, guided, of course, by the resolution that was passed in Parliament that declared that this is a national resource that will engender the support and collaboration of both the St. Kitts and Nevis federal government and the Nevis Island administration. As it relates to water, yes, the Bastia desalination plant is tremendously progressed. I think Prime Minister said 75%. We're probably closer to about 90% by now because of we are moving very, very good. And I want to commend the effort by the developer, Royal Utilities, in collaboration with Gemini, who is the designer of the whole plant. If you look out onto the ocean right now, you will actually see some very large pipes that are floating, but they will now be pinned to the seabed. And so that process is ongoing. So you see a major barge out there. That operation is actually very fascinating. And I invite people to go and have a look because if you see the pipes close up, they're almost as big as this table, while extraordinarily heavy. They have to use very large excavators and a big barge to get them out there. So it's really an exciting operation, especially for an engineer when you see these things. So we're very advanced. The different buildings that do the reverse osmosis or the filtration are largely complete. They're putting the final touches on those. And so in a few weeks' time, we will be ready to turn on the switch to provide 2 million gallons of water per day to the Bastia system. That is significant. And it will not only address the shortfalls in Bastia, but also its environs. It's going to help the St. Peter situation. And so we could have a situation where maybe from halfway tree, Sandy Point area, heading east all the way to Keon, could be returned to effectively 24-hour water service in a short time. I want to give strong commendation to my colleagues for when these proposals were put forward. They didn't hesitate to support the Ministry of Finance and the Prime Minister, of course, to make this major historic milestone for the people of St. Kitts in particular. So we look forward to that completion. We've also already laid the lines that go from the desal plant to the main storage area on Mon Peak, which has 2 million gallons worth of storage, and those pipelines have been effectively laid. I think the ends now need to be connected, so we're well advanced. Backup generation is already on site. The electricity has already been run from connecting to the power station for us to have electricity supply. So the project is going really, really well. The second part of your question is, since this is now going to be complete and done in, basically finished in 3 years to address a situation that has been outstanding for the last 15 years, the next big thing is already also in progress. Earlier this year, we did what is called a airborne-based geophysical survey of the rest of the island outside of the Basti area to identify underground aquifers that we have not tapped into as yet. That survey has been completed, and I am to get an update this week. I think it is this week. Is it this week or next week? Of the final results of the analysis. Preliminary data show that there is going to be exciting news, that they have identified areas of anomalies, which are where you find water. And so once we get that report, we'll be able to pinpoint the exact locations, anywhere from Sandy Point, going westward now around to, say, Molyneux Keon, where will be our next drilling targets. And we also did not wait until we got that information to prepare the drilling part of things. So we have already procured the driller that went out to tender some months ago. That is complete. I believe that the driller has been signed. And as soon as we get the location of the new wells, that driller will then be positioned in a few weeks thereafter to start the drilling. So we anticipate that over the next 6 months to a year, we will be doing significant drilling around the remainder of the country to then bring not only Bastia and its environs to 24-hour water service, but the entire island.
Thank you. Honorable Connors Maynard. Yes.
Morning, everyone. Lorraine Wilkin, Win FM. 2 questions. First, given the rate at which the U.S. is targeting immigration, is there a current update about visa policies in relation to St. Kitts and ECCU countries? And my second question, how prepared are our farmers for the hurricane season? What support is available for them in the event that they are negatively impacted by a storm?
Thank you very much. I would ask the Minister with responsibility for agriculture to answer that question with respect to agriculture, and then I would answer the one with respect to visas. Minister?
Yes, I wish to thank you for that question, WinFM. Now, as it relates to our farmers and the hurricane season and their preparedness, I would say that, first of all, hurricanes are very difficult to prepare for overall. However, when it comes to agriculture, we have recognized that banding together as a region, primarily the OECS, and having that support across the countries is one of the best way in preparation. So what we have done as the OECS, we have met as a team, and we have recognized that any particular country being hit, the other countries stand ready to come in and support in whichever way that we can. But beyond that, we have also been doing some maintenance of farm roads to make sure that our farmers have clear access. We continuously do a lot of cutting of trees along the sides of the roads, clearing of verges, and these are things that we are doing to ensure that there is access and limited scope for serious damage. Outside of that, we have also been working, even going forward beyond just the moment now, in getting our farmers insured, because we're recognizing that insurance is a really good way to make sure that our farmers don't lose the value of their crops. Because we can't stop hurricanes. We can't control them. But what we can do is make sure that we can be resilient in bouncing back after the storm. And that is what we've been working on. Yes.
Thank you very much, Minister. With respect to the visa aspect, there has not been any new policy that we are aware of. Of course, the foreign minister is here as well. We have been engaging at multiple levels, at the embassy level, at the Washington level, and of course, as the minister, responsibility for immigration, we have not seen any shift in policy with respect to visa as far as we are concerned. And so that would have arisen from some fears that persons might have had, but I think we communicated effectively the official position that we would have had from the United States, for example. But we have not seen any shift in the policy at all. I don't know if the Minister of Foreign Affairs would like to add to that from his ministry and what they have been doing there, and any updates.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Of course, there has been quite a bit that has been said with regard to the new immigration policies of the United States of America since the new President Trump, #2, has returned to office. There have been some publications that persons, for example, who apply for visa would have received them, and persons who would have been granted visas and have not in any way violated the conditions in which they were given those visas, they might have some of their monies returned. A number of these initiatives are being put forward by the United States government in order to ensure that persons who do not need to be in the United States of America do not come to the United States of America. We have had situations where some of our students who would have been there in the United States on US visas for studies, we understand that some of them have been denied visas in attempting to return. I mention those because these will naturally form the basis on which the government of St. Kitts and Nevis will engage the United States of America to ensure that our own people, especially those who are not violators, that they do not suffer from some of the policies that have been introduced by the new Trump administration. We intend, of course, to keep the public informed accordingly. Several months ago, there was quite a bit of rumor that there was a leak of a list of countries that would be prevented or would have difficulties in entering the United States of America. That leak prompted our ambassador and other ambassadors from the OECS to engage with Washington. They said that there was no such list, that they do not comment on leaks, but, however, this indicates that there is a need for the United States government, State Department, to enter into discussions on a number of issues which relate to us. And one of the issues identified was the CBI. So I'll stop there.
Good morning again, Glenn Bart. I want to address the situation in aviation in regards to our airport. Some time ago, you did mention that there were some plans with regards to looking at a new terminal to be constructed. Can you give us an update on where we are with that? And in the same token, tourism development, especially from Europe and England, London. How serious are we with that? Because we have now had a service from London for several years, and it hasn't really grown that much in terms of the number of flights. So I want you to give us a perspective on that. And in relation to the recent discussion with regards to creating a hub on products going to Africa and so forth. Again, I mentioned this because as it is right now, if we were able to develop that hub to create the products to go to Africa, it really is, at the moment, a disincentive for airlines to fly into St. Kitts to go to Africa, because they'll now have to create that, absorb that added cost to fly to some other destination to get the fuel to go to Africa. Our airport runway is only about 7,600 and something feet long. All of the runways in the Eastern Caribbean and elsewhere that take long-haul flights are at a minimum 9,000 feet. And I have researched that. And I've also gained the advice from several persons who are in the aviation industry. And they have confirmed what I said before, that as it is right now, our runway is too short to take direct flights from non-stop flights I'm talking about, not direct flights, non-stop flights from the RLB airport to places such as Abuja. So what I'm saying is that it's a disincentive. Why would an airline want to, a cargo airline for that matter, want to use St. Kitts as a hub when they have to add on that expense of going to another destination to get fuel? Why don't they simply say, put the hub in another destination that has the facilities? So I want you to address that issue for me with regards to what studies, plans are taking place to facilitate this thing in reality, because it's going to require some investment. Thank you.
I would let the Minister for Aviation answer this question, Honorable Master Henderson.
Thank you, PM, and thank you, Mr. Batt. I recall the last time we had a press conference, the question came in regards to the plans for the expansion of the airport. We discussed an additional terminal, and we have a technical team that's in place, provided for by the legislation. This falls under the ambit of the St. Christopher Air and the Seaports Authority. Their legislation provides scope for them to put a team in place, and that team is in place. The team comprises a number of experts, including those who serve as SCASPA, as well as the geotechnical engineers, civil engineers, attorneys, and others. After the initial discussions in terms of studies, feasibility studies, and other things, then consultation would continue, because it has started with stakeholders, those relevant to the process, including immigration, airlines, and all the others who the authority think is relevant for the discussions. We are still getting the information to help inform the concept, the design and concept. We are, I can say, maybe halfway through the process. They're making good strides, actually. I'm happy with the work being done by the committee and the experts that we've engaged. Of course, we had to engage experts to advise. The client is the authority, the St. Christopher Air and Seaports Authority, they are advising the team what they need within the new terminal, what the needs of the airport would be. And of course, this is in consultation with other stakeholders. And then we can come up with a concept and design. So we do have, we're about 50% along the way. In fact, we discussed it in cabinet yesterday when we met. And so we are on the way. You said a mouthful, and I'm trying to remember if that is the question you asked specifically about where we are with the terminal, right? Then you asked about the European markets and what we're doing in tourism. So our biggest source market is actually the US, and then it fluctuates between the Caribbean region and the UK in particular, not necessarily Europe, who would come in second, and then there's Canada in third place, and that sometimes alternates. Interestingly, from the data we started collecting and the efforts we've put into the UK, the marketing efforts, we've seen an uptick in visitors coming from the UK. And we're seeing them come in for longer stays. So for the recent music festival, a lot of them were here for 7 to 10 days. And that's usually how they holiday. And so we have to tailor our product to accommodate the needs of that market. But we've been pumping monies. We've been asking. I'm sure when you're paying attention, Mr. Bat, when we do the budget debates in December, you see how much we ask for marketing. And so we've been pumping a lot of our resources into marketing into other source markets. That is the only way we're going to stimulate demand, and then carriers would then be interested. But carriers don't want to come with empty flights. So there's a process. The process is stimulate the demand for the destination by looking at your services and your offerings. And so we've been doing that. We've been looking at what are working with our stakeholders, because sometimes even the taxi men would complain they're not taking the tours, but you must be conscious in what your visitors are looking for. The American visitors look for a different experience to the British visitors. And so this is a process. And during the vacation, the shoulder period right now, we're working with stakeholders to inform them of the trends. A lot of them who are coming at they're looking for the eco adventure. They're looking for not the party type, the Americans like that, but the British look for something else. So we continue our efforts to look at our product, at our offerings and our services, and then we market. We must first have that product to market. And so we've been working together and pushing a lot of marketing dollars into that source market. And we're seeing the returns. We now have to go back to our partners as the carriers, and maybe not just British Airways. We've been approaching other carriers as well to look at coming into the destination and offering routes here as well. And, from whether it's from the whether it's from the US or directly nonstop from the UK. So we are doing that. We've actually engaged. We're in discussions with someone who's going to be marketing the destination with us in that area. We have our marketing teams worldwide. We have a team here at base, and we have marketing teams in the US, in London, and wherever else we deem necessary. But we've increased our efforts within the UK, and we're hopeful to see the returns on that as well. The question as it relates to the runway, its ability to accommodate flights, I can't remember from where. But Mr. Bat, I think you asked the question at a previous press conference, but we have, and I think you referenced a particular aircraft and size, but
just for clarification, I don't want us to get hung up necessarily on a particular aircraft.
You're talking about a particular destination.
I'm talking about the destination.
Right. But different aircrafts fly from different destinations.
Correct.
So it depends on the type of aircraft.
Well,
but we don't need to get into that
no,
today.
Right. But just to say, take for example, Dominica.
Yes.
They are putting in place a jet airport right now.
Air bridges, you mean? Jet bridges?
No, I'm not talking about the bridges. I'm talking about a runway.
Right.
They're building a new runway, a new airport, a new facility. And the prime minister of that country has specifically said that they want to provide services, non-stop service from Dominica to London.
Right.
Guess what? Over 9,000 feet.
Right.
I say this to say that no matter where you go in the world, certain types of distances require a certain amount of fuel on an aircraft. You cannot do it on a short runway and fly from St. Kitts or from St. Martin and go to London. It is not going to happen. So my question remains is this: are we looking at expanding our runway? Because
absolutely,
you see, what is happening is that you cannot wait until the demand is there. You have to anticipate
absolutely
that as we work, we are going to have the demand by X date. So we have to start preparing now to do what is necessary to facilitate that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bad. Let's allow the minister to respond.
Right, and I see my colleagues here who are experts and might be in a better position to answer the question, but let it not be said that we're not preparing. The lands around the airport, all around, they belong to SCASPO. And for possible expansion, the lands that are fenced there and maintained by the authority, those are lands for future development. The lands on the back, all those lands, we are very conscious and of any future development, and we don't take those things for granted. I would like to answer the question, but I don't want to on the possibility of flying with aircraft flying with sufficient fuel from certain destinations to certain destinations, because it happens all the time. It happens regularly. I mean, I've taken 16-hour flights on aircrafts with runways sometimes smaller than ours. So, but today is not for that. Perhaps you and I can have a conversation separately. And I know my colleague wants to say something in response.
Just want to jump in very quickly. We appreciate the point, and obviously we're going to be looking at every opportunity for expansion, etc. But it must not be said that the airport as it is unable to facilitate direct flights to Europe. The airport in St. Martin is actually shorter than the runway in St. Kitts, and it accommodates flights directly from the Netherlands, from London, and so on, etc. It is not the flight that comes here, the wide-bodied aircraft that comes here from London that stops in Antigua can fly directly from here to London, right? And that is known. Afterwards, I can provide you a list of the aircrafts that can take off from our runway. In fact, I will go further. The aircraft that flies to London, one time, if you're unaware, that aircraft did not use the full length of the runway. In fact, there are two areas where you can get onto the runway. There's a short entrance, I don't know the term for it, and there's the one that's at the end on the most western side. And that aircraft took off from this shorter one long before, because the aircraft can do it, and the aircraft can handle that. So there are a number of long-haul flights that can take off from St. Kitts and Nevis. So I'll provide you with the list afterwards. There are some, obviously, that cannot, but those are the extraordinarily large ones. but there are long-haul flights that can take off from St. Kitts safely.
And PM, can I, not on that point, but on the source market penetration, I just got a message just to indicate our efforts as well. Cole Palmer's visits. We have not put out any public relations, any articles, anything as yet. But just from his visit alone, the CEO, I think about 2 days ago from the SKTA, sent me maybe over 200 stories published in the UK, not by us, not by our PR team, not by our marketing team, but just out of his visit alone. And those are strategically considered. So just because we want to make sure we penetrate that market, we look at relevance and influencers, sportsmen and women, persons who can help us in getting the St. Kitts brand within the markets that we want it. So we have not even yet started putting out what we did with Cole, but yet the stories are already, out there.
With respect to that, I'm trying to get to the bottom of Mr. Bad's question, because Mr. Bad spoke like a specialist in this area, and I listened attentively. I am not an expert in aviation, but I think the Minister, Connors Mainmad, made a very good point. There are types of plane that can take off from our airport and types of plane that can land on our airport and travel far. Mr. Bad, I traveled from here to Abuja directly.
Non-stop.
Right? I traveled directly from here to Abuja on a smaller aircraft. I asked if that aircraft can go over, and our airport can take much bigger aircraft than that. And if you're going to bring an aircraft that is dedicated to cargo and not people, you can come. Not only that, the 777 Airpiece also landed here with a lot of passengers. Those passengers have a lot of weight. A long-haul flight from Abuja straight into St. Kitts and Nevis. That was probably one of the biggest planes ever landed on our airport. And therefore, there are aircrafts of huge size that can land on our airport and can take off from our airport. And I will reiterate, when I traveled to Abuja, it was a direct flight. When I came back from Abuja, it was a direct flight. And I hear this talk about St. Kitts not being the hub and so forth. Let me say clearly here that we have made significant strides in ensuring that we connect the Caribbean with Africa. St. Kitts in particular has done tremendous work to make that connection. And the Honorable Samuel Duggins is here, because we're looking in the area of agriculture and creative economy and so forth, Mr. Bat. There are naysayers. I heard the former Prime Minister say that we are a small part in this equation. I want to condemn that statement, that St. Kitts and Nevis has the capacity and the capability to help to lead on this matter. As a matter of fact, and probably I should say it because it's going to be out in the media, I have been nominated to receive a recognition I have by MyPad, which is connected to the United Nations to honor or to recognize leaders of African descent who are making significant strides to advance African peoples in the world. I think I will be the only Prime Minister in the region to do that, to have received that.
Yes.
And it is because of my work. Mr. Bat, I say it around the world. It is not because of me alone, but because of this team that positioned me to do it. And I will say it here. We are small, but we tallow. Our size does not limit what we can achieve. And that is why I condemn vehemently the utterances of a former Prime Minister putting down our country to say that we are a small part of it. Tell him that the small man of the smallest country is going to receive the award because this cabinet has given the necessary support for us to connect Africa and the Caribbean in meaningful ways. Whatever happens after that, it must be recognized, the significant role that we have played. And now we have taken it to the next level, where we want now to establish a hub. And we are going to work in all areas and spheres, despite the naysayers, again, to seek to establish the hub. Our size is not our limitation. We must never think that as people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have always punched above our weight. And as the person who coined the adage, we're small but we tolerable, Honorable Conway Maynard, I don't take credit for it, I give you your credit. That is, oh, okay. That is a truism. That is a truism. Because when I go on these international stages, I do recognize that our size does not limit us. And that is a significant award. In addition to that, remember it was the former Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas, who got the Trumpet Award for his significant contribution in bringing the idea of how to get HIV medication to people around the world. And that one simple idea came from a small man in a small country to move the issue of access to medication around the world that has saved millions. I say again, Mr. Bat, our size does not limit us. One of the founding fathers of the US was born right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We had a world champion of the 100 meters. And I can go on and on and on. Cole Palmer came back to his roots. He said, this is where it probably began. And I can go on and on and on as to our contribution to world advancement and development, Mr. Bat. So we're going to push to create a hub here in the Caribbean that connects us to Africa. And I only spoke of the recognition and the award so that you can see the significant work that we have done, particularly myself, but with the support of this cabinet so that we can propel a significant relationship and reestablish in a meaningful way the connection between the Caribbean and Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, Ralston Rankin, two quick questions. The Bastille School, can you give us a timeline as to when construction will begin? And also the revenue sharing between St. Kitts and Nevis, the report is out. Can you let us know what the report is on the findings of the revenue sharing? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Minister of Responsibility for Education, Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable The Honorable Jeffrey Hanley.
Thank you very much for that question, Rankin. As I would have spoken some time ago about the Bastia High School, I repeat that the Bastia High School have in fact started. Earthwork is on its way at the Bastia High School with full construction expected very shortly. You would appreciate that this would be a state-of-the-art, almost like a university campus. So all of the necessary things are being put in place to ensure that we deliver the Bastia High School as promised. Almost 10 years, students have been denied of that school environment, and I remember saying that way back in 2018 that I will be the one, by God's grace, to deliver the Bastia High School, and that is on its way. All being well, we should see the completion, based on what I've been advised, in terms of a turnkey by December of 2026. But we're talking about construction. Things can happen. I must also report to us that this is being done through the CBI, as I indicated in previous conferences, and we look forward to the school utilizing just about 90% of our local contractors, our local laborers, making sure that the students of this federation and the country on a whole would benefit from the Bastia High School. And of course, any additional funds raised through the program would be used for the maintenance of our schools, because we recognize as well that this has been a problem over these years, and we in fact going to be doing some work in our schools during the summer vacation. Of course, the EIA has already been completed, and because of the magnitude of this project, through the planning unit, construction and approval will be given on a phase-by-phase basis. So you will see more of the work being done, and at the right time, with my education team, we'll have a full press conference about the Bastia High School, where we started with the demolition and all of these kind of things, so that we make sure that we clear the air that the school is in fact up and running and everything is in order. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another question was asked with respect to the fair share. As I said, this is a question that has been asked of me since I became Prime Minister. And I answered that question that we had engaged. The World Bank was engaged. And I insisted that that must be completed, because the issue of fair share had become a big issue. Example for the 2015 elections. Fair share was the mantra. For 7 years during that time, there had not been an independent, verified study as to how revenue should be shared between St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, the Constitution has a formula when it comes to revenues from taxes. I think the issue was over non-tax revenue, specifically revenues that were had through the CBI program. We asked the World Bank to look at it. The World Bank has completed its study. That study has been passed on to the Premier and to the Nevis Island Administration, and I know they're having the internal discussions. We, as the federal cabinet, will meet with the Nevis Island Administration to discuss that study and to look at the recommendation from the World Bank, or recommendations. But it is done, and it is with the Nevis Island Administration. We have our copy, and I think we're going to meet very, very soon. I think within a week or two, very, very soon. And the objective is to make that available to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And the reason why I wanted the World Bank to do that, a reputable organization, an organization that cannot be fooled. These are not simpletons. This organization is platinum in its class in terms of assessment of economies and these type of questions that are asked. And that is why I think it was appropriate to ask the World Bank. And I said, whatever the World Bank comes back with is what we will take into serious consideration to settle this matter of fair share. It will not come from my cabinet or from anybody that I appoint, but the World Bank, which is totally independent and has no skin in the game, will give us a platform on which to determine how this should actually be done. Mind you, again, the Constitution has a formula, but the question has been asked and raised, and therefore that is what we will receive. Nonetheless, I think the question on fair share is how do we relate to Nevis? This administration has done more to advance Nevis than even the same unity construct that the party was a part of, the ruling party Nevis was a part of. We have helped in the airport expansion because we look at it as a federal development. You will help Nevis, of course, it will help St. Kitts. And we have helped. That was not had in the previous administration. We have significantly invested a lot of our energies and resources into the geothermal development. That was not had during the 7 years where the ruling party in Nevis was part of a unity construct. We have sought to share the resources that we get since I've been here from the CBI with the Nevis Island Administration. And I think the World Bank had a comment on it. We have been there to help Nevis to advance. And presently, we are discussing again another major development, which will be discussed in maybe a month or two. Why am I saying that? Is that this administration, even though the ruling party in Nevis ran against this St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration, we have taken the pragmatic approach not to play petty politics, but to do what we can as a federal government to help the advancement, the real advancement of Nevis in energy, in international transportation, in other types of development. We have been there to assist Nevis and to help Nevis. So the question of fair share for us is inbuilt in what we consider to be one of the ethos of our governance when it comes to St. Kitts and Nevis relations. And so that too is fair share. That too is fair share. But we have the studies from the World Bank, which I'm sure will be made available very, very soon, because we'll meet with the Nevis Island Administration. And I know that you all are looking forward to see it, to look at it, to examine it, and to write about it as well. So that's for that question. Devon? Mm-hmm.
Yes, I want to follow up with the statement made by the AG about the witness tampering. What measures are being put in place to prevent something like that from happening again, other than the Judge Alone Trials Act? And what information is there on whether the government was formally written to by the US regarding the tariffs, and what discussions are taking place at the diplomatic level about this? Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. I would let the Minister responsibility for Foreign Affairs and Trade to handle the questions on tariff and diplomatic relations. Right, Honorable?
Right. The matter of United States imposition of higher tariffs, of course, this would have resulted from discussions. You would recall that a few months ago, this was settled to be 10%, significantly reduced from what originally it was thought to be. But the tariff imposed on our goods, for example, going into the US market, is really a small part of the challenge that we face with increased tariffs generally with other countries around the world. Because the opportunity that we had to export in the United States of America was as a result of the CPI, which several years ago was imposed, or introduced, maybe I should say, when there was a hurricane, and during the days of Reagan, a number of factories were established here, United States factories. Persons would have come out of Puerto Rico. And so the goods that were produced here entered into the US market on the special arrangement, so that they were almost treated as if they were US-made goods out of, let us say, Puerto Rico. So we have not seen any significant change, except what I just said. The 10% is what it has been identified to be. But there is ongoing discussions taking place. In fact, we just came out of Namibia, where the Commonwealth was meeting with senior trade officers and ministers. And the need to protect SIDS and so forth was one of the important topics that was being discussed. So countries around the world are becoming more and more engaged as a result of higher tariffs, and thus looking for peculiar arrangements, new arrangements that can be put in place with small countries like ours, that is small countries which were considered as a group as SIDS. The problem, however, with the tariffs and the higher cost of goods that was mentioned earlier was as a result of a combination of issues that would have been caused by the US change in policies. I mentioned, for example, a while ago, that goods arriving from arriving from exporting countries to destination here, and where the goods are being transported in Chinese-made ships, those would have imposed higher tariffs. So even though our goods entering into the US market may have a reasonably low tariff, the goods, however, which are coming in and which are being transported in certain ships, they are imposed higher tariffs, and thus the cost is passed on to us. So this is one of the situations that the Caribbean community is looking at very, very seriously. Recently, when we were in Jamaica, in Montego Bay, just 2 weeks ago, at the Heads of Government Conference, the need, therefore, for us to begin to produce more goods among ourselves. The use of Guyana. Guyana is the only country in the world today which has already been adjudged to be the country that can feed itself, the only country. And it is part of the Caribbean community. Therefore, we should do everything that we can to strengthen our relationship with Guyana, bringing meats and vegetables out of Guyana, bringing products out of Guyana, because it's produced within the Caribbean community. And so there is no tariff to be imposed on that, because it is originating within the community. We therefore need to make sure that we can make use of this. I know other countries, in fact, I had spoken with the Prime Minister of Barbados, Prime Minister of the President of Guyana, in terms of how can we, as countries collectively in the Eastern Caribbean, bring things out of Guyana in bulk and thus redistribute it among the smaller islands. Barbados, right now, we're discussing that with the Prime Minister of Barbados.
Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
Kyle Johnson again, SKNS. The minister preempted part of my question with the visit of Cole Palmer and his impact, but hopefully someone can speak as the impact locally, particularly among the young people he had a chance to interact with. And my second question is, we recently reopened the renovated Kim Collins Stadium. What measures, first of all, what's the impression of the new stadium, of the renovated stadium, and what, if any, measures have been put in place to ensure it does not go back to such a state of dilapidation? And maybe the minister can also explain why he didn't win the exhibition race.
I will let the minister go ahead and answer.
Thank you for that, Mr. Johnson. In regards to the exhibition race, I went to church on Sunday, and the pastor did the word on being hospitable and accommodating people in your home. And so I was accommodating those to allow them to feel very good while they were at my home. So that, I let them win. But beyond that, the truth is, as it relates to the stadium, which has been a long talk, years of neglect has caused that stadium to be where it is. Where it was. Good correction. Where it was. The previous government had neglected that stadium significantly. But it wasn't just years of neglect. It was also bad decisions. And I said bad decisions in the case of some of the events hosted there and how they were allowed to erect certain things around the facility. Didn't consider the damage that it will do to the facility. And so those decisions that were made by the previous government caused the track to be in the state that it was. We won't be making those same decisions. I can guarantee you that. But beyond that, because we understand the importance of sports and sport development, we have also been ensuring that our efforts are putting all resources to ensuring that track remains in the best condition. And that started by selecting the right track developer. The track developer that we selected has a legacy of doing very good tracks, but not just that. The tracks are actually easier to repair if damaged. And these are some of the things that we have considered. But I could also say that we are even taking steps beyond just that. So we're looking at security of the venue. We are looking at maintenance, terms of use, all these things that are part of what we're doing to maintain that venue standard. But even beyond that, we are looking at other things to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis never has to go without having a national stadium in any sport ready for highest level of use. So we're looking at all these things. I don't want to take the first part of the question away from the minister, but I could say from the area of sports and sporting development while I'm on the mic, I think Cole Palmer really touched and inspired so many of our young footballers. But I will let the Minister of Tourism take that even further. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. When we reached out to the agents for coal, clearly the objective was to make sure that we get our destination visible within the UK market. He is only 23 and an excellent footballer, but somewhat introverted. And so we had to be careful in terms of what events we had planned and, on the itinerary. But from the time he landed, though, and he was greeted by some of our young, enthusiastic, ambitious, those looking forward to being footballers, he lighted up. And he asked for more activities where he would be exposed to meet with, where he'd have the opportunity to meet with our upcoming footballers. All of this, however, because I see there was some controversy, but all of this had to be approved by his team, Chelsea, his management team as well, and it had to be consistent with his brand. And so he was eager and enthusiastic. He met with a number of premier clubs. He met with a number of the football clubs. I know the academies, some of them met with him. And he even ventured into playing basketball, not officially, but, he threw some hoops when he was in Newtown. So I wasn't around for the visits, but I'm told that, the young aspiring footballers and sportsmen within our island, they were eager and happy to meet him. He was able to autograph a number of jerseys and even gave some advice to the aspiring footballers.
Sorry, and if I may just briefly as well, one of the things that was inspiring for me with Cole Palmer's visit as well was a conversation that we were able to have. And one of the things he asked, are there any footballers in St. Kitts and Nevis that you think could benefit from development from clubs in the UK? And so we are actually opening up our eyes even more to see how we could facilitate that in real time. And I hope that answers your question.
All right, thank you very much. I think there's one last question here.
No.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, there. Uh-huh.
Sorry to be. It's too high up there. Thank you. Earlier this year, or it might have been sometime last year, the EU had expressed some concerns about the CBI program. Now, my head isn't so good all the time, but I think there was some talk about suspending visa-free access for some countries that have citizenship by investment programs. Am I okay, or It's all in my mind, I'm not sure.
Go ahead.
And I think there was also some concern about security and the lack of a genuine link of these people under these programs with no direct link to the countries.
All right, fair question. Thank you very much. With respect to the CBI in general, as you know, I said from the beginning that this would be the greatest challenge that I would face. And I said that for two reasons. One, because the bad decision that was made was to get our country to the point to depend on CBI, over 60% of our budget. That I think was a strategic error that put our country at great risk. The other matter was because the CBI, of course, does not totally, it has, other players in it, and decisions made afar can affect the CBI program. And if that is affected significantly, it can affect us, of course. And that is why I think, in other words, it had become the lifeline of St. Kitts and Nevis. I would always say it was the worst economic, fiscal decision made, because we were seeking all the time to diversify the economy after we would have learned a hard lesson from sugar. In 2005, when the factory closed and we had to seek to diversify the economy, financial services, expand tourism, and so forth, we had gotten back to the position where we had become dependent in a significant way on one sector. Notwithstanding that, we decided to make changes because we understood what was out there to protect our visa-free access and to protect the program as much as possible. And so we went through different iterations of adjustments to the law, or SRNOs, to make sure that we were adjusting accordingly so that we can accomplish both things, protect the program and make sure that we continue to have good foreign relations through visa-free access to other countries. Notwithstanding, of course, their continued discussion, I have engaged in multiple discussions, multiple fora in the Caribbean, in the US, in Europe, and so forth, dealing with the issue of the CBI program and adjusting it accordingly. We have reached the point, and something that I advocated for very strongly, is to have a regional regulator so that those of us in the Eastern Caribbean can be on the same playing field and have a standard that protects us and, of course, would allay any fears that our international partners may have with respect to our CBI program. I can safely say that in short order, we all are going to Parliament to pass a law and implement a regulator for the CBI in the Eastern Caribbean, which will answer a number of the questions that you have put forward. Questions to answer of direct link to the country. There's link, but there might be questions as to whether that can be strengthened. That is going to be answered. And I don't know if you have seen it, but there is a draft of the bill that has been circulated by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, which is now standing as the body to help us to usher in this regulatory body and this regulatory legal framework. It's out there, so it'd be good if you can see it, or our news agencies here can see it and give their feedback, so that can, of course, trigger down or filter down into the final law that is to be implemented. So we have come a very long way, and I think this is a tremendous positive step in the right direction. At the end of the day, I can never predict what will happen, but what must always be said is that this administration and myself, we did everything we could have done to help to secure the program and, of course, to maintain our relations with with other countries through visa-free access, reciprocal visa-free access. We have done a lot. And so this is the last part, and we really hope that we have done enough. However, we cannot predict all of the decisions that are to be made with respect to what other countries will do. But we continue to be strong diplomatically. We continue to strengthen relations so that we can achieve both. So you're not wrong. You have heard something, and that is where we are at this particular time. So the bill is out, the draft bill for inputs, and I hope you may be able to give an input as well. I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, you can move right into your final reflection.
Or just to wrap up, based on the time. Okay, yes. So I would take the opportunity and give each member 2 minutes, and I because let them sum up very quickly the big things that they have delivered in these 3 years. And I know each member here, I know it's hard because each has delivered so much. But in 2 minutes, if they just list a couple of the great achievements, what they look forward to achieve so that we can get through it quickly. But I really am proud of this team and what each member has accomplished as a minister and a member of this cabinet. So I'll start with the Honorable Marsha Henderson, who, just because she's at the end and we work our way up.
Okay, so I can start the battle. Thank you, Prime Minister. So for us, within the first, it's 3 years already. It feels, like it was just the other day, but we've, within tourism and labor and employment. First, in tourism, the objective really was to make the sector not seasonal, but year-round. And we've made significant strides within the 3 years. Yesterday, I came in on a flight, and this is July. And usually in July, the seats are not filled. People are going out, but the flight was filled to capacity. And that's us, all the efforts in terms of ramping up marketing, increasing lift and all the other things. Looking at our offerings, we've managed to move the sector from, usually where it ends in April, and we have these flights still coming in filled up to, let's say, August. So we just struggle with September and October. We will continue, and hopefully at some point in time, we will have year-round, flights. We have the legacy carriers coming back, so a number of them are out. They're coming. This is the shoulder period, both for airlift and for cruise. And we have the legacy carriers coming back in November. We've met with all of them. So the Deltas, the American has stayed. United Airlines continues. It ends. All of the carriers are coming back. During this time, we are going to be doing some training. We've been meeting with all the stakeholders. We have taxi and tour. We've closed off applications for persons interested in taxi and tour operations. PM, just give me some time. This is important because we get a number of calls for persons wishing to, with their applications. There's been no real training for the industry. No real training as it comes to tour and taxis, and we're putting on the training from the end of August. The days will be published. We've met with the taxi presidents as well and those who we consulted. We had over 500 applications, and based on what the law says, we've narrowed it down to about 197. So the training starts at the end of August up to October. We will have those training sessions, and we would, at that time, determine who we will be admitting. Now, the room stock strategy, we've been discussing that as well. We have looked with the other ministries what we're going to do to increase the room stock, because for us to get more flights, we need more rooms. We can't just tell the flights to come. And so we're looking at our room stock strategy. We are finalizing it for it to be taken to the cabinet, for the cabinet to take a look at. Of course, this involves the Ministry of Investment for us to reach out to potential investors to finish a number of incomplete developments. We have in one property 350 rooms, and this was a real problem during the music festival. So we are finalizing our room stock strategy, and that should help with us getting more airlift as well. We will be working with all the stakeholders to make sure that we're ready for the season, which starts in October, both cruise and the winter season, where we get the bulk of our visitors for now. I want to take the opportunity to commend the teams who work with us in tourism, those at the St. Christopher Air and Seaports Authority. We just did some training for more security officers as well. 40 persons were interviewed. Well, 40 persons were successful for training. We interviewed over 100 and something persons. Those who work at the Frigate Bay Development Corporation as well, those at the Urban Development Corporation, the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, and the Ministry of Tourism. I want to take the opportunity to thank them for their hard work towards the tourism industry, and we look forward to the continued cooperation of all stakeholders. Thank you, Pierre.
All right, thank you very much. I know it's hard to fit so much work in 2 minutes. Minister Duggins.
PM, advice now. 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
So let's go through it. In agriculture, I think it's fair to say that we've done exceptional work. One thing that is clear, we have created the largest planting program since sugar, where we would have put last year over 60,000 bananas and plantains in the ground, over 150,000 pineapples in the ground. We just started distributing 15,000 coconut trees to be planted. Also, we have done extensive work across the areas of tomatoes, melons, peppers, and a number of other crops. Of course, you've heard about the Tabasco project as well. Altogether, collectively, we have created the largest agricultural program the country has seen since sugar production. And there's quite a bit more that we can discuss for 2 minutes. Moving on to fisheries. As you would have heard last year, we would have seen the largest income of the sector ever, being 19.6 million. We move on to carnival, where we would have seen record-breaking carnivals, where we had last year the largest visitorship that we've seen at over 14,000 persons. Most of the carnival troops were maxed out with the largest attendance ever. But we also saw an economic impact of over 21 million. And so I think that's worthy of note. In sports, we have been fixing all the problem left by the last government. We have repaired the Kim Collins Stadium, which was left neglected for so long. Basketball City is now underway, which has been neglected for so long, and a number of other stadiums. We built the Connery Stadium over in Connery from scratch. We have repaired the Newtown Stadium. We have repaired the Halfway Stadium. We have done some work at St. Paul's. But there's quite a bit that we have done in fixing the problems left by the last administration. But beyond that, we also brought sports back into schools, where we had cricket, football, and netball reinstituted across all primary and all high schools and even the tertiary level. And that, again, had been out for some time. So, again, I think that's worthy of note. In the Ministry of Small Business, first of all, we created that ministry back in 2022. And we have given a mandate to the sector. And over that time, we have had the chance to work with financial institutions where hundreds of small business owners would have received financing, whether it be loans or grants in different cases. But we are also now, through our Building Bankable Businesses program, preparing another cohort of small businesses to be able to be financially capable to access financing through financial institutions. Moving on to the creative economy. I think it's very clear what we've been doing in the creative economy. We've seen most of our artists traveling and touring in one way or another. Last year, we saw small acts, grandmasters, and a number of bands doing some work around the region and also the UK and the US. Last year for Miami's Carnival, we had the largest number of local performers ever in the US at one time. And we've also seen this year Dejour and others touring as well. We've seen DJ Terror touring as well. And that was one of the commitments we made, that our artists will take to the world stage. We have also designed, and we are now approaching the groundbreaking of the Creative Arts Center for the Creative Economy. Now, that is $100 million investment into the country, and that should be breaking ground in a matter of months. And so with the creative economy, we've done quite a bit of work there as well. PM, how much more minutes I got? But just to say, we continue working hard across all ministries. We do our quarterly press conferences, and so I'll ask the press to just keep up to date every quarter as we continue to bring information to you, the press and the general public by extension. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now on to Minister Maynard. 2 minutes.
Let's try. Over $80 million worth of roadworks in the first 3 years of an administration, the most ever in the beginning of an administration. We have built new roads in Stonefort, new concrete roads, that is, in Stonefort, Palmetto Point, in Boyd's View, Racecourse, Newton Ground, Rollins, St. Paul's, White House in St. Peter's, Shadwell West, and Shadwell South. We have also embarked on an aggressive resurfacing campaign from Warner Park, Bay Road East, Boyd's Village, Market Street, Spot Street, Lower Monkey Hill, Fort Lands, Wigley Avenue, Trafalgar, Otley's Village, Harris's, Limekeel Housing, Limekeel Abattoir Road area, New Road East, Southwell Drive, Industrial Site, George Street. We're right now in Sandy Point. We're heading to George Street. Heading to Infirmary Road and Trafalgar area, and heading to New Road, Cleco Housing, Halfway Tree, Tabernacle, Molyneux, and Wingfield. Very aggressive. We have provided technical support to all of the ministries that require the technical support to public works, whether it is the new stadium at Connery, whether it is the Kim Collins Stadium, whether it is the MRI building for the Ministry of Health, whether it is the upgrade of schools, any of those projects that require the technical assistance. We have done so by increasing the capacity at Public Works. We have 4 Cuban engineers that are part of our team now to expand our ability to handle so many of government's projects. In energy, we are embarking on a $40 million expansion of the Needmust power plant that will upgrade by 18 megawatts worth of power. That is significant. That is more than 50% upgrade of our present capacity. We have given unprecedented support to the Nevis Island Administration, NEVLEC, and obviously from a federal perspective on geothermal in terms of identifying finance, securing finance, and supporting at all levels in our international encounters. We are now in the middle of a transaction advisory process to attract the best solar and battery energy developers from across the region and the world. That is ongoing, and you will get further input on that as we intend to close that process out shortly. When it comes to water, we have returned K-On to 24-hour water. That is all those persons who live just below the tank itself, because there are some customers that live above the tank, and obviously they won't be able to a small amount. And so we're building a new tank in K-On to facilitate that. So K-On, after many decades, has been returned to 24-hour water. We are building a historic 2 million gallon per day desal plant that will help aid in bringing Bastia and its environs back to 24-hour water. And we have completed this survey of potential aquifers around the entire island of St. Kitts and about to drill for wells to bring the remainder of the island to 24-hour water. In ICT, we have engaged in the development of a digital EID, such that every citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis will have a unique identifier that is linked to all of their relevant information, and only persons with the requisite authority can access that information. So for instance, when you go to a bank, say for instance, it will have access to your police certificate or your birth certificate, so you don't have to run from area to area. We have set up what is called a digital transformation management unit, who is responsible for overseeing the e-government transformation of the entire federal government, so that services can be brought to you more efficiently and effectively. In terms of posts, we have started what is called a national addressing system, where we have onboarded, for ICT, I forgot to mention that we have onboarded one of the world's foremost consultants in the area of digital transformation called Cybernetica, who is out of Estonia, where the birthplace of digital government happened. And so we are glad to have them on our team after a procurement process. They were identified as the best suit for what we want to do. In post, we are presently doing a national addressing system to finally name and provide fixed addresses for every property in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have onboarded also a very good consultant who was responsible for the development of these systems, for instance, in Washington, D.C. They recently completed one in one of the islands in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And so we're very happy to be dealing with them. They have had their initial visits, and now they're doing their recommendations of how we're going to move to a point where your address will now be 4 Ebony Brandon Street, Tabernacle, XYZ with a postal code, as opposed to around the shop by the red car. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
You're very much welcome. I'll now pass it on. The AG's online. AG, to just 2 minutes to just wrap up.
Prime Minister, good morning or good afternoon again. We've been very active at the Attorney General's office, particularly with drafting laws. We have been able to table 87 bills in Parliament, of which after this week would have passed. After this week is completed, we will pass around 77 of them. So we've been very active on that front, and those laws have been for the betterment of all the people in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have also spent a lot of time upskilling the Attorney General's office to be able to deal with the complex issues that come from all of the various ministries, and trying to expedite the advice that we provide, and having our team able to deal with providing legal advice to the ministries that are obviously, from the updates thus far from the ministries and the ministers, doing a lot of work. We've drafted numerous contracts, including the desalination plant. We've reviewed the various project contracts for all of the various projects that have been conducted. We did immense work in relation to CBI amendments and other developments in terms of the good governance framework. We are very proud to be able to actually bring into force the Anti-Corruption Act and get the Integrity in Public Life Office to become fully functional. We have done work to make sure that we establish the Constitutional Boundaries Committee and all the various other constitutional responsibilities that fall within the purview of the Attorney General's office. In relation to the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs, we have been able to empower the Intellectual Property Office to work now at full steam. Our office is getting lots of international recognition, and I'm proud to announce that the World Intellectual Property Office has agreed to partner with the IPO SKN to potentially develop 1 or 2 geographic indicators, which is when there is a product in St. Kitts and Nevis that can be identified as being particular to our federation, such that it can be sold at a higher price by the persons who use it to manufacture, similar to what has been done with nutmeg in Grenada and what is being done now with honey in Antigua. There's a potential that there may be a couple of our products that may fit into this category, potentially the Nevis Polymango. We've also done a lot of work to ensure that our courts are fully functional and that our judges, support staff, registrars are comfortable. We met a dilapidated Sir Leal Moore Judicial and Legal Services Complex. We have engaged a contractor to clear it out, remove all of the mold and all of the bird. I don't know what's the good word to use in this context, but the birds have overtaken the Leal Moore, so we're cleaning it. We removed all the files. We've cleaned all the files. We've established the High Court and the Magistrates Court at Fort Lands, and we intend to do a lot more work with the Sir Leal Moore complex to get it back so that the High Court Registry can operate from it. We're advancing in relation to the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs headquarters. We now have the floor plans, which are in the final stage of review. And then once we have those, we will then seek to get our MEP contractors and then put it out to tender for contractors to be able to bid so that we can get to the construction of the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs building on Bay Road, Bastille. We have relocated the land registry, and we have seen successes from our survey to the bar that land transactions are being processed much quicker than they were before. We have empowered 2 registrars, and we have provided the land registry with the support it needs to be able to serve a modern St. Kitts and Nevis. We've done a lot of other things, PM, but I believe that that's my 2 minutes.
Much, AG. I'll now move on to Senior Minister, and he'll have 2 minutes, 1 second.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Let me start with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So far, we have had to take over the responsibility as the chair of the Council on Foreign and Community Relations with regard to CARICOM. We also have been elected to what we call the Economic and Social Committee at the United Nations for 2026 to 2028. And thirdly, at the United Nations as well, we've been elected to be the Vice President of the UN General Assembly at the 80th session that takes place this year, September. At the level of the ACS, Association of the Caribbean States, St. Kitts and Nevis has become the chair of 2 special committees on trade, economic development, and investment. With regard to new missions that we have opened as a country, we have had our High Commissioner in India eventually presenting his credentials to the President. And as a result of that, we now have a functional mission or embassy in Delhi in India. We've also awaiting the response for an agreement from the government of Singapore with regard to another high commission that we are opening there, and we expect that to take place over the next few weeks to months. I should also say that we have entered into discussions with countries like Saudi Arabia, and in particular with Kuwait. And we also would be engaging countries like Qatar that is in the Middle East, in order to ensure that we can have proper representation for the government and people in those countries. I want to say that with regard to the Organization of American States, we've had tremendous support, especially in the area of scholarships, and not to mention, of course, the scholarships that we continue to have from Morocco and the Republic of China and Taiwan. We want to thank not only Ambassador Francis, who is our ambassador there in Taiwan, but also the outgoing ambassador of Taiwan, who, as you would have heard, has basically been recalled and to be given, I'm sure, higher duties by his government, while we await the presence of a new ambassador from Taiwan, who will be coming here shortly. In the area of investment, just to emphasize that Hotel Indigo, which we had broken ground for a few months ago, that there has now been the signing of the construction agreement between the contractor and the developer. And so we are expecting that we would have some constructions taking place very shortly, thus providing quite a number of job opportunities for our people. We continue in discussions with the developers of the Taj Hotel and Spa, which is a brand, a very high luxury brand coming out of India and in Asia generally. They are in discussions with the Whitegate Development Corporation with regard to the location of this new facility, and so that continues as well. In the area of international trade, we have just come out of Namibia, as I mentioned earlier, in speaking to a question and responding to a question. But we want to make sure that we continue to have a presence in the international community on trading matters in order to ensure that we can project and request fairer trade policies and relations with St. Kitts and Nevis and those with which we are trading. Finally, on the area of industry, just to say that we eventually are looking forward for the establishment of 3 new facilities in the industrial estate, one of which almost close to completion, that is Sparrow Foods, and also another facility that will be producing solar panels. Finally, let me just simply say that we are also in discussions through the relevant entity with business people in Curacao, trying to establish partnerships with businessmen there, not only partnerships for goods, which might be more cheaply produced and thus be cheaper for our own consumers here, but also in terms of possibilities for partnership in investment. That's all for now. Thank you. Well, let me simply say, finally, that because of the importance of the CBI in terms of facilitating investment in the country, we continue as a ministry to be engaged at the level of the Foreign Affairs to ensure that discussions, especially with the United States of America and discussions with the European Union, are properly facilitated so that at the end of the day, we would still have this facility to assist us in attracting new investors and investment to our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now to the Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Honorable Hanley. You have 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister, and I'll try my best. As a teacher, I remember my days in the classroom where you had to be repeating stuff because you were dealing with children with different abilities, and sometimes they would ask you the same question that you would have shared or the concept that you would have taught. And I bring that in light of what's happening in the atmosphere, that we are delivering on our housing, as the Prime Minister indicated, that I probably should be blowing my trumpet a little bit more. 183 homes would have been completed across the various constituencies. And as a teacher, I must say, when you compare the time frame of 2015 to now, the 3 years, the former administration, they built 164 homes in that period of time. It therefore means that we have broken that record. That 183 homes has nothing to do with the 75 that is presently under construction, including the 4 apartment building that is near completion on East Street, and in West Street, you will see the 8 apartment building being constructed. In quick time, matter of fact, Honorable Samuel would be able to attest to this. Work would have started already in Harry Phipps, where we are starting the cluster homes down there. That will be an additional 50 homes in completion, Harry Phipps, Utley's Village, Sandy Point, and Race Course. So if you were to add up all of those, all being well, long before this year is done, 326 homes would be either completed or near completion, housing moving in the right direction. And we did not spend a cent to East Coast. We did not spend 1 cent to East Coast. I must bring that to our attention. Work continue in East Street, As later August, the one will be completed, and right after that, we're going to take down another building, so that will be families for another 4 apartments. And the West Street project, when completed, 5 buildings with 8 apartments in each, will have 22 2-bedroom units, 4 3-bedroom units, 4 1-bedroom units, and we're building 4 special studio designated for the building supervisors. Those of you who are familiar with New York concept would know that we call them soup in New York, because as we build these buildings, we have to make sure that they're well maintained and persons do not vandalize them. Of course, over the time, we would have invested close to $1 million on renovation work and upgrades at the Gardens housing project. So those tenants, they are much more comfortable. Moving right along, in terms of the Newtown Community Center, in my constituency as well, we are quite aware that there's an active seniors daycare program that have been happening for quite a while now, over a year, in not only in East Bastia, but in St. Peter's and also St. Paul's, and there will be the expansion of the others. We are supporting our seniors as it relates to the aging in dignity. You have seen them all over, exposed to the movies, the art and craft, the playing domino, making kites, and of course, one of the most important element of their gathering is their spiritual gathering. So the devotions and pastors and other persons go in and make sure that they are in order. I mentioned earlier that the Bastia High School have started, and so over in Molyneux, the Joshua Obadiah Williams Primary School, construction have started on the 3 buildings over there. 3 active contractors are over there. When it comes to education, moving as swiftly as I can, this year, 28 scholarships for Taiwan, the most we have ever had. And of course, the government continues to support other students who are studying at Monroe University and other universities where they can get a study grant. And of course, we continue to pay the economic costs for our students at UWI. I'm happy to report that starting in September for the first time, the Ministry of Education has a relationship with the Open University of Tanzania, where about 24 of our teachers would be given scholarships to upgrade themselves in bachelor's degree in education. And this is through our partnership as well with UNESCO. And I am happy to report that we are the first country in the Caribbean to have this arrangement. And I should also add, we are in discussion and pre-drafting of a memorandum of understanding with the Open University of Kenya, who will be assisting us with our TVET scholarships and our TVET training. And while I'm on TVET, a big deal will happen next month where the first cohort of students would be receiving their NVQ. We have had many years of talking about this. The reality is just before us. Next month, we'll have those persons receiving their certificate. Early childhood is celebrating 40 years this year, and I'm happy that under my watch, I was able to introduce vacation for our teachers and care providers in those institutions. Other than just having vacation once per year, they are now having vacations in the Easter, and we are going to continue to work through this. And of course, all of those in the private sector, they now can go and apply for their business license, so they are certified as early childhood providers or care providers, and they can now apply to the bank for loans. This has never happened before. The school upgrades continue. I think I've been repeating this over and over in terms of the dilapidated state that I would have met most of our schools. We are doing extensive work over the summer vacation to bring them up to the standard that we would want. We know we would not be able to do all that we'd like to do based on what we have. And of course, later in the year, we are going to be having the discussion as we work on our curriculum. We are going to be providing or exposing our students to local history. This will be taught at all levels in our school, and this support comes from UNESCO, and I'm extremely grateful for the support that I've been getting from that office and the overseas ambassador as well, Dr. Doyle. PM, that's it for now.
Thank you very much. I know the ministers have a lot to say, so I really want to thank them for trying their best to wrap up in a short time. I get 2 minutes, 3 seconds. Just to touch on a couple of things. The Deputy Prime Minister mentioned our contact with 2 significant universities in Africa. We will be the first in the Caribbean to establish that type of relationship. So going back to Mr. Bad's question about us being able to blaze the trail in establishing deeper relations with Africa, even though we are the smallest, this is extremely significant. We are serious about this, Mr. Bad, and that is why I want to thank the Deputy Prime Minister for those, and this speaks to the question of, even though we are small, can we help to blaze the trail to reconnect us with Africa? And this is meaningful that we have these connections with these universities. With respect to the Cardigan home, we have now attached the prison maintenance team. We have very skilled persons who are at His Majesty's prison, and they would be responsible for the maintenance of the Cardigan home. Maintain it, do whatever it needs to put it in better condition and to have it upgraded. So I just wanted to mention that, and I want to thank those who will be participating in that. With respect to immigration, I want to say we have an ETA system. Our ETA system is the most advanced in the Caribbean. Again, I go to the point, we might be small, but we can blaze trails. We have it. And we had larger countries, for example, Guyana came to take a look at our ETA system, and they are now going to adopt our ETA system in Guyana. It is very efficient. In 3 seconds, you walk to the airport. I told people you just walk to the airport, the immigration, and it's happening. We have also been judged, again, the best new passport in the world. In the world. Again, we are small, but we are blazing the trail. Our size does not limit us. And I want that to be understood. And to just say the point, to close it off, small but with Talawa, really, I think they say in Jamaica, we little but with Talawa. So it's a Caribbean thing, but let's give credit to who credit is due. But it's an excellent adage that also applies to St. Kitts and Nevis. On the national security end, I want to thank everybody, the whole of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Royal St. Kitts and Nevis Police Force led by Commissioner Sutton and his high command team and all of the officers, the acting commander for our defense force and all of the soldiers, all of our people who work in Elevate from Hodge all the way down to Miss Williams and the others who are there. So many names to mention, Dr. Powell and the others. I want to thank social services, education, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I want to thank the clergy. This has been a Herculean effort. Everybody has been engaged with respect to this. I'm from the Secretariat to thank Mr. Hans Richards and Ms. Avalon Carey, Eartha Carey, who has been doing tremendous work, and of course, Minister Iselin Phillip, who is helping with the programming, with our public relations, Ms. Ebony Brandon, and all those, PS from my office, PS Naima Hazel. It has been a Herculean task which has involved the whole of society. The tremendous success we have had is credited to all of us, because only all of us can really do it. Even those from the opposition who heed the call and attended the sessions. I want to thank them as well. With respect to health, I want to update, with respect to national security, We have just launched our third iteration of a football camp, the crime prevention football camp. We have over 300 young people, male and female. We have through sport from the United Kingdom, which is a professional group that use football to help young people to become good people using football. At the same time, honing their skills, not just on the football field, but as human beings. And I want to thank the British Embassy for sponsoring and helping us in collaborating with us to make that a success. I want to thank the corporate community in St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to thank the Citizen Secretariat as well, National Security, the National Intervention Team from National Security, because we see that dealing with the issue of crime and violence has to be holistic from a public health approach, not just punitive, where you want to just lock up people and throw away the key. How about we put things in place so they don't reach the point where they get involved in gangs? I want to say to our young people, keep away from gangs. Gangs are bad. They only lead to three things: death, hospital, jail, and embarrassment for your family. Gangs are bad. They don't have any future. Choose something wholesome. Go and play football. We also had a master class with the sheriff from Trinidad and Tobago, who is a producer who has worked with people like Michael Montana and so forth. And he did a master class, and we had over 50 young people in the creative space who attended that master class. And that is another way in which we are using alternative means to get our young people, our people in general, on the straight and narrow, and to reject a life of crime and violence, which ends in just all bad things, really. With respect to health, I want to talk about the ambulances. We have about 9 ambulances in order, 9. And the first 2 are supposed to come the end of this month. There was a slowdown. We were informed by TDC. The slowdown was because of the war in Ukraine that affected the supply chain. Otherwise, we would have received these ambulances a while back. But I want to thank TDC for their straightforwardness and for working hard to make sure that we get those ambulances. The first 2 should be here at the end of this month. By November, we should have all on island, barring nothing new comes up. But they're on track to be here in St. Kitts and Nevis. At the hospital, we have added a pastor. We now have a chaplain at the hospital because the spiritual aspect for health is critically important. We have added customer service rep. So the pastor is Pastor Donna Peets, and Ms. Griffin from Keys is our customer service person and patient advocate. And that has been a new addition to deliver better services at the hospital. The MRI building is near completion, very, very close to completion, and we expect to have the MRI this year. We had to build a whole new building just to get the MRI. There was no other building appropriate to house an MRI. And so that building with all the specifications are coming to an end. I have spoken about a lot of other things, but let me just wrap up by saying that I want to thank this team, this labor administration team. At the end of the day, it is the Labour Party that has been selected, or elected rather, to run the government. We continue to do so based on the principles of what Labour is about. Labour is about people. How can we advance the lives of people? Whether it be through all these different ministries and sectors, the focus is really on the people. We are doing that by an overarching strategy called the Sustainable Island State. This is not just about climate change and renewable energy. It is about building better lives for our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so this team has demonstrated that it is up to the task, and in less than 3 years, it has delivered things that people thought would have never been delivered in St. Kitts and Nevis. Geothermal, for example, people thought that could have never been done. Large desalination plant, which were spoken of. Connection with Africa in education, that I did not speak of, but the Minister of Education spoke to it. That shows that we are serious. People probably thought, for years the Rastafari community was asking, why are we not connected? And we have found that it made sense to connect. We are building a brand new Bastia High School after 7 years of nada. We are building a brand new hospital But while we are doing that, we are investing heavily in the JNF and encourage people to go to JNF, to see air-conditioned units and wards, to see how our foyer looks, to see the new additions that we have at JNF. We're not waiting for a new hospital to invest in health. We are investing heavily in health. And to answer Mr. Bad's question on the medication, we are implementing a new system that would be a system that will improve. It will be, and that system, I think, might have caused some slowness because I asked about it, but it is because we are making those significant transformation. And so I would like to say, all in all, these are some of the things that we are doing, and one press conference is not enough for us to speak about all of them. But at the end of the day, I want to thank the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, because this is all about you. We are here because of you. And no time in my mind I'm thinking that is not because of the people. It's always because of the people. And we remain humble with that thought in mind. And all that we do is really to help to better the lives of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Will there be challenges? Yes, there will always be challenges. We are not perfect beings. We are not perfect beings, but we dedicated to the work and to work hard to advance St. Kitts and Nevis and to advance the lives of our people? Yes. Is there room for us to go out in the community and connect some more? There's some room for that. We have been, of course, doing a lot of work within the government to run the government, but there's always room for improvement. And we are humble enough to see that, to listen to that, and to work to improve upon that. So we welcome the feedback of the people, because without your feedback, we would never know what we can make better. So hearing your criticisms, hearing your suggestions and your ideas, those things help us, so that if we are going on a course and we're off a little bit, you're going to bring us back on course. So we are listening, and we are doing so in a very humble way. So we want to thank the people for their suggestions, for their criticisms, for their ideas, because those things help us to get it better and better as we go along. And I lastly say today that we are grateful again to have come before the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and we will continue to come in a very open and transparent way. Thank you very much, and may God bless all of you.
Thank you, Prime Minister, once again. As we close today's press conference, allow me to offer a few words of appreciation to the members of the media. Thank you for your continued commitment to public accountability. Your role is vital in shaping informed national dialogue. To the members of the public, thank you for joining us. The questions asked and updates today are for your benefit, because democracy is strongest when people are informed, engaged, and heard. And to the members of Cabinet, thank you for your leadership, your presence, and your shared dedication to service. Before I take my leave, I encourage the public to stay connected, follow official government channels, visit www.sknis.gov.kn and stay updated, stay informed, and continue engaging as we work to build a sustainable island state together. This concludes the press conference. Thank you, and have a safe Tuesday.